We've all been there. Rock bottom. The lowest you can feel. Like the world has just forgotten you. That things cannot get any worse. Each rock bottom is different, has different causes and manifestations, and hits each of us differently. Some folks hit rock bottom and they are done. They cannot see a way out. In her memoir about struggling with mental illness, Elizabeth Wurtzel described rock bottom as an inability to cope with the commonplace that is so extreme it makes even the grandest and loveliest things unbearable. Rock bottom is feeling that the only thing that matters in all of life is the one bad moment. Rock bottom is everything out of focus. It's a failure of vision, a failure to see the world how it is, to see the good in what it is, and only to wonder why the hell things look the way they do and not some other way. I think I felt that. The overwhelming feeling that you cannot survive, move on, see another way. And yet, long before the rock bottom, or even after a previous rock bottom, we had experienced other obstacles and lo and behold, had found a way. Author J.K. Rowling is known for saying that rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. She turned her deep hole into a literary empire. She somehow found a way to see her rock bottom not as a bottomless pit or an abyss with no escape, but rather a springboard, or in her words, a foundation to rebuilding. But it is a very real feeling, that feeling when you are down, you are down. You are knocked out, cold, like Muhammad Ali had just hit you with a solid left. And you've wobbled backwards into the ropes and then slowly fell to the mat, never to get up again. Until someone brought out the smelling salts. But it helps to remember that when we are down, we are not necessarily out. I recall going to the Mixed Martial Arts Championship in Las Vegas with my dad and cousin about 8 years or so ago. There was this one fighter from Thailand, Malapet. He was a one-namer, Malapet. And he was small and strong and scrappy. I loved him. And throughout his bout, he was getting hit and knocked around. And my dad and cousin Scott and I would look at one another with that face like, oh God, please make it stop, right? But every time he got hit, he just stayed in it. He took the punch. He got back up. He dodged another hit. Got his own shots in. In the end, it turned out to be a close match. He lost. I was sad for him because he fought a really good fight. But more than that, he would not stay down. At the end of the night, after many, many fights, as we were leaving, I saw Malapet in the lobby. I grabbed my cousin and said, dude, take my picture with Malapet. And I went up to him and said, you were awesome. You fought like a, insert swear word, thank you for being here. And he thanked me and took a picture with me with this giant infectious smile. Malapet taught me that we have to get back up. In our reading, we heard talk of obstacles, the things that get in our way. A tree, an opponent who has a faster jab, a divorce that leaves you penniless, an addiction to alcohol that renders you out of control, a loss of a job or business or friend or lover that has sent you reeling. When the obstacle appears, we have to decide, are we dealing with this? Then, how do I deal with this? I find myself reminded of Dora the Explorer, which I had to watch a lot when Rafaela was little. And Dora and her trusty companion Boots would be on their journey only to encounter an obstacle, a tree in the road, or a giant mountain, or a broken bridge. And Dora, in her high-pitched wisdom, would say, we can't go around it. We can't go through say, mostly to myself, "Oh, come on, Dora, let's go through it. Going through it is how we're going to learn something." I was watching Dora as a spiritual teacher, while her creators were thinking more about problem solving and map skills. But actually, I do think they were teaching gumption as well. Those obstacles are there, and we can let them derail us and render us out. Or we can really look at them, study them, question them, learn from them, and not in the trite everything happens for a reason way. Because yes, everything does happen for a reason. It's called the nature of cause and effect. That's how science and Buddhism explain everything. Obstacles are probably not a sign from above, but are more likely the natural flow of things. And if we are ready to do the heavy lifting, we can look at those obstacles as teachers or warnings. In either case, we learn to make a decision, and hopefully that decision helps us to live to fight another day. French sociologist Émile Durkheim said, "When this ultimate crisis comes, when there is no way out, that is the very moment when we explode from within and the totally other emerges. The sudden surfacing of a strength, a security of unknown origin, welling up from beyond reason, rational expectation, and hope." I sure hope so. I know I felt that when I was in my darkest times. Something inside me welled up and said, "Get up, kid, you're not done yet." And I got up. But how do we find that strength, that security of unknown origin? That's the tricky part, because I think it may involve going through it. Battling the Balrog, doing the work, digging deep and radically accepting what is. But then things shift. Writer and philanthropist Glennon Doyle puts it, "First the pain, then the rising." The pain is going to be there, but so is the rising. Sometimes to get to the rising, we may have to ask for help. And if any of you are like me, that is not something that comes naturally. I have spent years learning to do just that, and I am glad that I did. For a number of years, I attended Al-Anon meetings to deal with my choice to marry a person years ago with an addiction. I was a little reluctant and freaked out at first to sit in a room of strangers and share things about myself. But I needed help, and those 12-step rooms were transformative. I didn't say a word for months, just listened and cried and worked the steps on my own and with my therapist and another friend who was in a different 12-step program. Eventually, I drummed up the courage to share, to be vulnerable, and to put my story, which I didn't think was particularly special, out there. It was scary, but it was so rewarding. In the Al-Anon book, Courage to Change, a member shares her story. Sometimes the things we consider our greatest weaknesses proved to be our greatest strengths. They provide us with opportunities for growth that we would never have had otherwise. All my life I prayed for courage, but it was through my shyness that I learned that courage was already available to me. I was hesitant about sharing in meetings, afraid I would be ridiculed. I sat in the back and kept my secrets to myself. Still, I heard my story so often that I began to lose my fear. Calling upon a reserve of courage I didn't know existed, I managed to approach some members who seemed to have similar experiences. In time, I had spoken to so many people one-on-one that sharing in the group became possible, even comfortable. She says, "If my fear had simply been removed, I might never have known that I am capable of acting on my own behalf." I didn't need enough strength to get up in front of a room full of strangers. I only needed enough to keep taking my tiny steps. I had exactly enough strength and courage to reach my goal. We have exactly enough courage and strength to reach our goal. Maybe that's all we need to remember. But sometimes we are our own worst enemies. We get in our own way. This soft, lumpy, gray thing in our head likes to concoct stories and illusions that tell us we can't handle this, we cannot get up, we should just lie on the mat because the smelling salts are not coming. And even if they did, they would still suck. We become the tree in the road and the broken bridge. We let fear and judgment and guilt and despair overtake us. And worst of all, we let regret stop us. We punish ourselves and lug our regrets around like a bag of bricks. My favorite scene in my favorite movie, The Mission, is when Rodrigo, played by Robert De Niro, who as penance for his own sins, killing his brother, sorry, spoiler alert, decides to join the Jesuits to their mission in the highlands of Paraguay. But he carries a mesh bag filled with a suit of armor over his body while hiking and climbing barefoot up cliffs and over water into these mountainous highlands. He is literally carrying his regret with him. On more than one occasion, the weight, the burden almost kills him. He cannot let his suffering go. And you know who releases him? A small Guarani man, a stranger, who runs up and cuts the bag off of him and releases it into the sea. And the release becomes Rodrigo's rising. Along with regret, our other obstacles are worry and predicting the worst. There's a 12-step adage that says, living in the wreckage of the future. And our goal is to stop living in the wreckage of the future. Stop assuming that the bad stuff or obstacles are going to happen again and again, and take things one day at a time. Maybe the obstacles will be there. Maybe they won't. We cannot know what happens next. But if we assume it's going to be bad, then we won't even try. But if we get out of our own way, stop being our own obstacle to growth and change and joy and deep, full-bodied spiritual contentment, and do the work, or feel the pain, or ask for help, maybe we just might get to the other side. And then we can take those tiny steps and do the next hard thing and make the next right choice. And isn't that one of the reasons why we come here? Isn't that part of why we are Unitarian Universalists, religious people? To do better for ourselves, for others, for the planet. To find the community that will help us when we are down, who will sit with us while we go through it, who will keep us from living in the wreckage of the future, who will help us let go. So look around. I mean it. Take a look around. There are people here who are willing to refill your spiritual cup, to sit with you in your pain, and help usher you into the rising. I'm going to end with a quote from Carol Burnett, arguably one of the funniest humans ever to walk the earth. She said, rather astutely, "You have to go through the falling down in order to learn to walk. It helps to know that you can survive it." May we remember that when we are down, we are not out. May we find a way through the pain and obstacles so we can usher in the rising. And may we find the tools and people who will support us on our journey. May it be so. Blessed be.